Speed.
Okay, now I've got some questions for you today about digital nomad dating and romance.
Okay. Happy
I want y'all
Valentine's Day,
to,
everyone.
yes, Valentine's Day. So I want to know about how you approach dating and relationships in your digitally nomadic life, challenges that you've faced, memorable or interesting dating experiences, most romantic location. We're going to cover all that. But Michelle, why don't you start us off? Just tell us, how does being a digital nomad affect your approach to dating and relationships?
Well, I'm going blank on this, but
Not at all.
not at all.
It
Not at
makes
all.
it
No,
it makes it easier to never call her again.
that is true.
It
You can
does.
just go
Yeah.
to another country when it was a bust. No, I would say one of the differences, I
It's
think the main
ghosting to a
difference,
hole.
I think the main difference is that you don't really have a lot of fluff at the beginning. Like you have less time to, not less time on the actual date, but like less time that you're all in the same location because everyone moves a lot. Plus, you have one of your biggest life goals or purposes, I guess.
Can
Uh,
you fill in? What do you
I
think he's
lost you,
saying,
Michelle.
Anne-Marie?
We can't hear you.
He's saying, and you know, sometimes when
Michelle,
you're
we can't
a
hear you.
digital nomad, you just go out there and get on the horse.
I
What's
think
he
I
saying
think
about a
we figured
horse?
it out.
Oh, I am back now.
Now we hear you. Great. So we
Okay, you
Awesome.
were
lost you.
saying
You
something about
said
a horse.
no.
I,
You
I,
were saying something about time. You have less time that you're together in the same area, and then you
Yeah,
kind of
no
cut out.
less fluff.
yeah, so you have less fluff. Like you have less time to really get to know one another. So you just go all in right away. If you try to date the traditional way, where it's like, one date every week or something for like, a month or two, like you just don't have that kind of time to invest. I guess you have the time to invest. You just don't have that much time in the same location, typically speaking. Um, and I think the second thing I was saying is that you immediately have more in common than you normally would because you're already traveling and if you're both digital nomads, like you're both working abroad, you're both in a foreign country and experiencing, the same new things in a way. Plus, it can lead to some more interesting dates. Like it's not just like, oh, let's go grab dinner. It is also, hey, let's go whitewater rafting, or like let's explore the jungle, which is not something most people do on first dates, I would say. So those are the
Yeah,
main
doing
things, in my
the
opinion.
first date thing as a non-digital nomad, I feel like it's really tough because it's like, well, do we go to the movies and then we don't really talk or get to know each other at all? Do we go get coffee? But then there's like loud music. You know, you go to a Starbucks, they always have really loud, weird
Well,
music.
don't go to Starbucks.
Yeah, that's true. But I don't know. Everybody kind of takes their lead from Starbucks. And so they're like, oh gosh, we got to play really loud, weird music. And then I thought that the mall was a really good idea.
You're in
And
eighth grade.
well, I thought the mall because it's like you could go people watching. You know, to me, it's like, and there's all you move around, you're walking around, you see a bunch of different stuff. You can be like, whoa, those shoes look weird, or oh, hey, that's a cool video game. Do you play video games? Maybe not. Maybe don't say that on the first date. But you know, that seemed to me like a good thing. But I remember when I was online dating and I was gonna ask Courtney, who obviously eventually became my wife, they were like, do not ask her to go to the mall. That's the weirdest thing. And so I didn't. And we went to a bar instead and had a nice time. And she
And it
later told me,
worked out.
she said, if you had asked me to go to the mall, we would have never met.
Oh.
She said that's the creepiest thing I've ever heard of. So, you
To
know,
be fair,
Oh.
with the whole mall, like, we quite enjoyed going to the mall when we first met.
but
I
it
was
was
gonna
after the
say,
first date,
like,
probably.
we,
I mean, it's a public place, you know, nothing's going to happen.
well, I mean, we kind of already knew each other a bit when we went on, I guess, what would qualify. Oh no, my camera's gone. Um, we had already known each other for
I'll show people how you're moving. I'll do your,
great. We had already known each other for a little bit by the time we decided, there we are,
oh,
to
good.
like romantically be involved. Um, but our first date was like our first date that we planned as a date was at the mall. We went to see a movie in Thailand and it was in the mall, and then we wandered around the mall for a
Movies
bit.
and the mall. See, that's the perfect date.
But then, like, the first kind of date that we had, first, like, yeah, kind of date where it was really not originally intended as a date. And Michel just kind of shared his feelings with me on our way, was at the Thai night market, which is basically just an outdoor mall. It's just a bunch of kiosks of, you know, like when you go to the fair and there's, different kiosks of foods and games and all of that kind of stuff. They just do that quite regularly, once a week usually, in major cities in Thailand. I think in most Southeast Asian countries they do night markets. Um, so, I mean, that's really just an outdoor mall, like, that isn't permanent.
So, and would you say things, are they different? I mean, well, obviously they're different, but how would you say, what are the biggest differences you would say between traditional dating, which who even knows what that is these days, um, versus digital nomad dating?
I mean, so when you're living at home, you're not when you have a home and you're not nomadic, I feel like your ways of meeting people are usually either through friends, through work, or if you happen to be at university, like through school, or through the internet. And frankly, when you're traveling, work tends to be taken out of the picture on that one. But you tend to meet more people through other settings because you have a tendency to put yourself more often in social settings that are not familiar, that aren't like a bunch of people who you already know. So you already just have more opportunity to more organically meet people, I think. People definitely still do online dating. Um, with traveling, they usually use like Bumble and Tinder and whatever, um, which is just as successful as it is at home. It's hit or miss, a lot of it's just a bunch of trash. I would say that when you're traveling, the the harder part with online dating is that it's almost always just people who are looking to have sex,
Mm.
because it's not really people who are looking to have a relationship. That said, people do use it just to meet people, just to meet fellow travelers. But if you're staying at a hostel, you have a lot more opportunity to organically meet people, talk to people, kind of get to know them a little bit, at least on a pretty deep level, usually before there's even any romantic intention involved, which I
Mm.
think honestly makes it the whole thing a lot easier. Like, and you all go into this whole situation knowing, okay, you're in this location for 10 days. I'm in this location for 10 days. If we really enjoy this, we can hang out this whole time. But at the end of 10 days, it's over. Like, so
Yeah.
you kind of go into it with this thought that it's not going to last, which is exactly how Michelle and I went into it. We get 3 weeks. And at the end of 3 weeks, that's done. This is a fun summer fling. And because we thought that it was going to end, we just had no, like, we just did not hold back on who we were as people. We didn't pretend even slightly. And at the end of that 3 weeks, we were like, well, shit, what do we do now? Because we don't really want this to end. So let's give it a shot. And here we are 4 years later. So I would say actually it's more, I think it's easier.
One thing that seems like it would be better is that when you're if you're online dating, for example, you only have that pool of however many people are dating online in that area. But when you're moving everywhere, you can move around. You could even, like, if you meet interesting people, you could even, like, go where they are to meet them, unless maybe that's, I don't know, maybe that's creepy, but
It's not.
you do something like that,
It happens.
and you just have so much more of a, uh, just meet all different kind of people, because maybe you just would happen to get along better with people from, different cultures, or like maybe you you're from America, but you're just not very American, or you're like, you're just, I don't know. I could see how maybe you'd get along differently with people from different places. And have you ever heard that song? It's like The Whole Wide World or whatever. I think it's Eric Idle, maybe the guy for. It's like, when I was a young boy, my mama said to me, "There's only one girl in the world for you, and she probably lives in Tahiti." And it's about him saying he'd
Maybe.
go the whole wide world to find her. Well, first of all, if you do that, that's a cool song that you can sing to whoever you meet. But also, that's the thing. Like, what if you believe in soulmates? I don't know how I feel about that idea, but if you do,
No.
how do you know that your soulmate is in the same city? What if she's in Tahiti?
That's totally valid. I used to believe in soulmates, and I thought to myself, well, what if my fucking soulmate is on the other side of the world? How am I ever going to meet them?
And that's why you became a digital nomad.
And then I met my soulmate on the other side of the world. Here we are.
Here we are.
There you go. So, if you
I
want to
do.
find true love,
Mhm.
you got to travel. So, have y'all ever, would you say, any unique challenges? Because I feel like right now it sounds like, pretty positive. I guess there is the fact that it can seem kind of like time condensed. You've got to really maybe cover a lot of ground if you want to get serious. But other than that, are there any challenges?
I would say just because of the way life works then, like it's zero to hero, like day one. Like you have to like really commit yourself for those like 10 days that we are together, or you know, you and whoever it is you meet are together. So you want to go really intense real quick to figure out if that person is really, you know, relationship material. And I feel like when you are dating and you are traveling together, it it really is together. Like you're on top of one another all the time. No pun intended, but like
Really, no fluff.
you,
Just
yeah, no, but like you travel together, you share the room together, and it's only going to be one room if you're in a hostel or in a hotel or anything like that. Um, I don't know. That just comes up. That's just what comes up for me, like challenge wise. I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, I think the challenge is, so I think for like Michelle and I, it all sounds hunky dory now because we're 4 years into this. So we've kind of gotten past the majority of our big challenges. Um, well, for now. In 2 months, we'll have a new big challenge, uh, but we started dating and kind of were mostly basically living together right off the bat for 3 weeks.
Pretty much.
And then I went back to the States for 3 or 4 weeks, and he went, no, I went back to the States, yeah, for 3 weeks, and then I went to England. He was in Thailand for another month. So now we suddenly had long distance. So is that going to work? And we were long distance for 6 weeks when we'd only been dating for 3. So now suddenly a third of our relationship has been long distance. And then I wanted to visit him in the Netherlands, and he was home, because it's really just it's like a 1.5 hour plane ride from England. It's not far, but that means I got to meet his entire family 7 weeks into our relationship. And if you're 18 meeting somebody's entire family, it's probably not a huge deal. But when you're 33 meeting someone's entire family, like, there's a lot that goes with that. So, that reminds me of a really funny story that I'll save for another time. But it was Michelle's birthday, the day that I got there. So if you happen to be watching this and you are Dutch, I wasn't taught about Dutch circle parties and gefeliciteerd, and it was a new relationship, so you can figure that one out. And for the rest of you, I'll tell you later. Anyway, yeah. So I mean, you go with the challenges of long distance, meeting family much faster than you want, living together right at the start. So you're very aware of a lot of very intimate challenges while you're still in the getting to know you phase. So you don't even have this, you don't even have this maybe false idea of who the person is before you go into these things, which again, it's challenging, but maybe in a way that's better, because then you're not holding on to this idea of who this person is when they're at their best, because up until then, everything's, been kind of a show. If you're dating somebody for a year and then you move in together, or if you get married before you move in together, like, then you suddenly, you can't hide anything anymore.
One thing that I feel like would be difficult would be, like Michelle was saying, that idea that you're always, I don't know if, like, for me, the the idea that, I don't know, it's like, it feels like it might almost create this feeling that the person was like clingy,
Needy
or if
and
they were
clingy.
clingy,
Yeah.
it would exacerbate it. And maybe it wouldn't really be how they really were, but it might just be because they were in a different place, or because they were, or just because y'all happen to see each other so much more than you would I don't know, like, for me, I feel like, the reason I feel like things, or one of the reasons, is for Courtney and I, like, Courtney was really not like a clingy person, and
Mhm.
so we were able to really kind of like have that time to meet each other, to get to know each other, and not be like, oh, we love each other and we're going to spend every minute together. And then we got to the point where we did spend all this time together. But at first, it was kind of like, so I could see how that might be tough.
Yeah, it's interesting because uh, I remember saying to Michelle maybe 2 months ago that I think I finally hit a point where I don't know if you're familiar with attachment theory, but I finally hit a point where I would qualify myself as a securely attached person, whereas previously I was what I would classify myself as an anxiously attached person, which is also known as clingy. So in a way, for me, being with the person all the time actually was really great, because I am naturally clingy anyway in a new relationship. And I was able to become more securely attached and much less clingy over time as our relationship grew. that definitely caused some challenges for Michel. He definitely felt a bit smothered at times. But I also learned that I actually do need alone time because I was in this situation. And we both became very quickly capable of communicating those needs and not taking it personally. So we were sort of forced to overcome, I think, what would be a natural challenge in a relationship anyway. We were just forced to do it very early on. And, hey, I need 2 hours to myself. Do you mind if I stay in the room and you go have dinner or something on your own? But yeah, if you are a clingy person, you can logically know, okay, this is not about me, this is about them. They just need time to themselves, but you have to go then process that. And you're going to take that 2 hours and you're going to just be upset and process it while he's just relaxing for 2 hours at home and, whatever. It's fine. It was helpful for my healing process. Now he goes out to teach yoga, a couple times a week for 4 or 5 hours, and he comes home and I'm like, why are you back? Like, go away. Leave me alone. Like, did you bring me a snack? Then you're useless to me.
This
Okay,
is what I have come to.
what about memorable experiences out there in the wide world?
I
Dating
mean,
experiences.
I guess so. Let me start off by saying that like experiences you have when you're dating as a digital nomad, when you're traveling, like your average level of like excitement and stuff uh, is much higher. Like here at home, you could be like, "Oh yeah, we did this cool thing. We on my first date, we went, mini golf or something." Um, but when you're traveling, you just like you just do more exciting things. So like when you say like something exciting relating to dating kind of stuff, like yeah, we went and visited like Teotihuacan or like cool places.
Which
Like,
is a
but that's
pyramid
like
in Mexico, for those who don't know.
it's a pyramid complex in Mexico. But like those things on their own, like to people that don't travel, like that's super exciting. But to us, it's just another day-to-day activity that we just wanted to do, and we decided to call it a date or something. Um, that being said,
Just to
no,
throw in there, though, but somebody who lives, a Mexican person who lives close to Teotihuacan may see that as just a normal activity to go do for a date, the way we might see going to the park and going for a walk as a date. Or when I was living in Colorado, hiking, going on an 8-mile hike was a very normal date. In Florida, going to Busch Gardens was a very normal date. And I think all of that is a little bit relative to your
There's
location.
probably some Mexican guy on a dating app telling his mom, I think I'm gonna take her to the pyramids. And
Maybe.
she's like, "Oh no, that's creepy. Don't take her to the pyramids." And he's like,
It's really no different
"Okay."
than going to a national park if you're local, because that's what
mhm,
it is. It's a national
mhm.
park.
He asked me to go to the pyramids with all these dead bodies. What's that supposed to mean? It's like, hey, you want to go to a cemetery?
Let's do it.
Go to what do they call the
Yeah, but those are Egyptian pyramids. Pyramids in Mexico were not for burying the dead.
We
Oh,
put
well,
dead
that's
people
right.
in
Well, but
there, but
in Egypt, you could see how somebody might make the same mistake. You want to
Sure.
go see? It's like what you could ask me to go see the Sphinx. You want to go see where just dead people had their brains
I
pulled
mean,
out of their head with a hook?
I'm sure in New York City that people take dates to like the World Trade Center memorial site.
Can you imagine back, thousands of years ago? You're sitting there, and for some reason, you've decided, okay, I've got to get this dead guy's brain out of his head, and you're like you're troubleshooting, like, how am I going to get this brain out of the head? And you're like, well, let's try a hook. And then you're sitting there and you don't know if it's going to work.
They probably tried to suck it out with a straw first, and that
Yeah.
didn't work. And
I think what a lot of people are wondering, though, is what do you call those underground catacombs,
yeah,
right?
people go to the
Underground,
catacombs for dates.
It's actually very popular in
sure.
France to do that.
It's very
Yeah.
popular.
It's just like a wine cellar, but instead of wine, there's dead
It's
bodies.
dead
Come on.
people. Yeah.
And you can get
Yeah.
lost in them.
They're
Ooh,
probably really good for having sex.
with all the dead bodies.
I mean, we've never been
Creating.
to the catacombs. Well, not together. I think Michelle has been to the catacombs.
I'm not actually.
You haven't?
Not
Okay.
to
Well, we'll
like
add it to our list.
catacombs. I've been underneath churches and that kind of stuff. But
There was something else you were going to add, though, my dear, and I think I cut you off.
I think I was going to add that I wouldn't really call this a date experience, but for your birthday, when we were in France, like, oh, we just happened to be in France for your
Well, we
birthday. Like, we didn't really.
semi-planned being in France for my birthday,
We
but
semi-planned it, but we didn't end up like really where we wanted to be. Like, but we're digital nomads, so we adapt. So like, for your birthday, I took you to a real French macaron making course, and like, that's
he surprised
you
me
could.
with a macaron course
I did that,
from a French chef.
but like, that's the thing that you can do as a digital nomad, and sure, that's not something you do, on a regular basis, but like that to us is like a level up. Like, doing a cooking course in local cuisine, that's kind of stuff that you would do on dates, maybe. Not, let's go walk in the park kind of thing, because, it's a park. You have the option to do something special.
I mean, we
so
went to
why
play
not do
mini
it?
golf last week for a date, so
We did.
why? I mean, it's the worst of it all.
But we're not really traveling at the moment, are we?
No, but
She
we
kind
would.
of is. She's traveling for the rest of her life.
I'm traveling for the rest of my life. But also, I feel like you and I often do date things that are what we would classify as very normal activities. Because the point of it isn't the activity, it's the deliberate time together in a romantic capacity. So, being that we're together all the time, it's quite difficult to, like, you have to really like carve something out and be like, this is a date. So then you end up, dressing as best as you can and going to somewhere that is often quite normal, a nice restaurant or a movie or something, but something where we can both just be truly relaxed and just absorbed in one another. Because if you really wanted to, you could classify everything we do as being a date, because it's two people who are out. Going to the fucking grocery store doesn't count as a date, but we do it together most of the time. So,
But that's also like, just to get to the grocery thing, that is something that normal people wouldn't really classify as a date, but like labeling it as a date because in a foreign country you go to the supermarket for the first time, like, it's exciting. Like, you want to know what they offer, what brands do they have. Oh, they have this thing that we have at home. Okay, we can get this stuff here. Like, it's an
or
exciting
they have
event
this
to visit
cool
a
thing that
grocery
we've
store for
never
the first
seen.
time. What was that?
Where they have this cool thing that I've never seen before.
Okay, so before we get into the lightning round, one last question for people out there who are already a couple, a part of a couple, whether they're married or not, who are maybe thinking, let's go become digital nomads. What would you say? What advice would you have for them? What are some of the pitfalls? What are some of the, are they going to stay together, or is that going to be the end of their marriage? What would you say to these couples out there thinking, I want to be a digital nomad, and my significant other loves me enough to also become one. What do you say to them?
The way you phrased that maybe potentially changes my answer.
Well, hey, tell us both ways. Go on.
Fine. So I think the benefit of meeting each other on the road is that you both know that in your heart of hearts, travel is the top priority for you personally in life. That may change over time. Of course, it changes over time, but that is a passion of both of you. If it is a matter of we've been together, my partner wants to become a digital nomad, and I love them enough to do that for them, but I don't want that on my own, I would not do it. I would actually recommend in that situation the partner tries to find a way to travel quite frequently, maybe without their significant other, but I feel like that's going to bring up resentment if it's okay, I'm going to give up my
Yeah,
life and I'm going to do this for you
or
because I
what if
love
they
you that
just
much.
what if they just took you off, y'all all go visit somewhere, and then they just leave you in some catacombs and pick up some other girl, and then you're just
Well, then
stuck and
they're
you
an
don't know.
asshole. So, you
Yeah,
know,
that'd be terrible. They're like, this is what they want, but you don't
but
want that. Then you're just trapped and you're
yeah,
doing
then
some
you're
more.
just
Well, you're
trapped
not
in the
trapped. You leave.
catacombs.
Yeah, unless what if the catacombs cave
I
in?
can't tell you how many times that Michelle has dropped me at a grocery store and he's like, text, I'm going to sit in the parking lot. Text me when you're done. And because I'm just running in for a bottle of wine or something.
Hmm.
And then I can't find him in the parking lot. And I'm like, that's it. This is when he
This
randomly
is the
decided
end.
just to leave me. And it's not an actual fear. It's one of those fleeting paranoid thoughts of 5 seconds. Like, that's it. He's decided to just leave me in this podunk town in France where I can't speak a lick of fucking French, and that he's just left me here. I don't even have a way to pay for anything to get home because I
Yeah.
have I had €5 in cash on me, and he has my phone. And
And this is you. And this is you securely attached. You
yeah,
must have
this is
been a
me
real piece of
securely
work.
attached. No, again, I've never actually thought that. It's more of when a movie plays in your head, you're like, all right, okay, that's what happened. Oh, okay, there's the car. Whew, we're good.
Found him.
Yeah. Yeah, no, in all honesty, if you've been living a stable life, with a circle of friends and all of that, and you decide to become digital nomads, if you managed as a couple to get through COVID lockdowns, with nothing but each other, and you still loved each other and maybe were closer as a result of that, great, go do it. If that almost broke your marriage, don't become digital nomads together. Like, you need to find a way to get closer to one another first, because it really is like that. You are with that person constantly. My mom actually has mentioned that she went through a similar transition when my dad was retired for 3 years before she retired, and then she retired, and they were both used to working full time, having 2 kids, having friends, blah blah blah, and then they were both retired, and they were just like, I'm not supposed to be with my husband this much. We are not supposed to be together all the time like this. And so they started volunteering and all of that, and that's how they kind of got through it. Both did different things away from each other. And then COVID happened 3 years later. So they had found their rhythm, and then the lockdowns happened, and then they were like, fuck, we're together all the time and we can't get away. And they at least have a 4-bedroom house. Like,
Well, it
imagine if
sounds
they're
like
in a hotel.
one good option, and this could be, for really any couple, it might be really good for your relationship to both be digital nomads, but separately. I'll
We have
go to
friends who do that.
Thailand, you go to France, and maybe we'll meet back up in 5 or 6 years. Um, so, Michelle, what would you say? So, let's say you've got, because some people, this is they're going to do it. Maybe they just robbed a bank and they're on the run. They're going to be digital nomads together. Do you have any advice on how to make it work?
Well, let's assume they've robbed the bank and that's the reason. No, I would say prioritize me time and communicate. Well, me time, not as much, but like communicating is just a thing in general in relationships that needs to happen. But especially when you're traveling, me time becomes more of a priority. Even if you think you don't need me time, like Anne-Marie said to me the other day, like, okay, I need you to take some you time because I can feel that you're just in need of that. And so I did, and it felt great. But like when you're traveling, like, go on solo dates. Like take yourself on a date to go on a hike or even with a group of other people that is not the person that you're traveling with to
I
go
still
and
don't
do
classify that
something.
as me time,
It's,
but
it's still me time,
yes,
yeah,
it's a
but
good
like
point.
do something without the partner that just gets you, out of the house. Because if you're working as a digital nomad, you're going to spend a lot of time either at home or at the co-working space. And it is quite healthy to have a distinction between home and work, or like personal life, work life. So like, but also if you're, say, working from home, whether that's at home or, whilst traveling, um, like you're most likely working together. You're spending your whole day in the same building, in the same house. Even if you have completely different jobs, eventually you just run out of things to talk about. Like, how's your day been? Well, I sat across from you all day. Like, you know how it's been. So like, oh, now I'm grumpy. Okay, well, you you just have to make sure that you communicate when you notice that things are feeling a little bit off, and just figure out, hey, how can we fix that? Is it more me time? Is it, uh, you know, you have to go somewhere and I want the house to myself, uh, you know, to sing Disney songs out loud, whatever it is. Like, if you need that, and if your partner needs something like that, then talk to each other and make it happen.
I think that goes without being a digital nomad, though. Like, I think that is just key, in my opinion, key for making your any relationship, romantic or otherwise, work, is just stop being so afraid of talking to one another and just communicate, and do so kindly, but also receive it kindly. So if somebody is angry towards you, or frustrated, rather than receiving it in a defensive manner, approach it with curiosity and, okay, what's going on? How can I help you resolve whatever this is? Because 95% of whatever they're feeling is not you, it's their reaction to something. And if you don't take it defensively, then you can work together to solve the problem. And I feel like in relationships in general, at least I know from my past relationships, the loads of them that didn't work out, it wasn't just me being a bitch to them, it was them receiving my bitchiness in a bad way, or them being mean to me and me being defensive in the way I received it, rather than recognizing, okay, this person's really stressed right now. He had a really bad day at work, and maybe I'm just asking questions that are really intense, and he's afraid to tell me that he just needs time alone because I'm going to take it personally. Um, you know, just communicate, and again, don't take it personally, and somebody told me once, and this was the best relationship advice I had ever received. And I received it after breaking up with a long-term partner, who I had a lot of challenges with. And Michelle was the next person I dated after. The next person, well, I went on dates after. Michelle was the next person that I committed to. And that advice was that a healthy relationship, should be good 98% of the time. And the 2% of the time should be easy 98% of the time. And the 2% of the time that it's not easy, it is two people working together to fix a common problem. It is not two people competing with one another to try to win. And applying that to Michelle and I, like, helped so much in those early days with those struggles. And just recognizing, like, okay, this is two people who both care about this relationship, and what do we say to one another to move forward from this challenge?
I like it. Now, are you ready for the lightning round?
Oh yeah, let's do it.
Bring it.
Okay. Your heart rate should be speeding up. You should be feeling maybe a little bit of sweat on the brow.
Well, I'm
It's
pregnant,
the
so my heart
lightning
rate's
round.
already as fast as it can go.
All right. Question number 1, Michelle. What's the most romantic place you've ever visited as a digital nomad?
I had to think about that because
You're not
there's a
allowed
lot
to
of
think.
places.
Lightning.
So let me say that a lot of places you visit have a romantic notion to them, like, ooh, Paris, city of romance. When you get there,
City
sure,
of
a lot of
Pigeons.
couples come
That's what I
there,
say.
but like, just because
Very-
the expectation is romantic, it doesn't mean that it's a romantic place. So I would say, what's the word I'm looking for? The expectation you
Catacombs?
set when you're visiting a place is has a lot to do with it. But I would say the most romantic place that I've visited that was actually not, I wasn't expecting it to be romantic, was a little town in France called Blois.
Blah.
Bleu, as we like to call it. But it was very quaint. The vibes were good, but we just had a very romantic,
Very
like,
old town.
experience there. Not that there's a lot of like couples on dates and that kind of stuff, but it just the feeling, that the experience that the two of us had there was very romantic.
Mm-hmm.
This is my
I
final answer.
When we were there, I felt like I was in Beauty and the Beast. You know, when she's like at the beginning of the movie, walking around singing about how
Oh,
she's
yeah.
like in this provincial town and it's so boring. And this town is like from 1312 or
Very
1300s
provincial.
or something. It's very French provincial. And I was just walking around, and a man actually like popped out of a window and was like, bonjour. And I was just like, oh my God, it's like I'm in a fucking
the
Disney movie. This is amazing.
the council for tourism in the area probably makes them do that.
Probably.
Well, that's for me, it's Costco. You go
Costco.
grab a slice of pizza, buy a really big cake. Free samples everywhere is very, very romantic.
We enjoy
Um,
IKEA for that. We
yeah,
get a hot dog at the
get
end.
some Swedish meatballs, or as they call it at IKEA headquarters, meatballs.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you ever surprised your significant other with a romantic gesture while traveling? I think, Michelle, I think you have. Isn't that what we talked about already? You said, wasn't that a
Yeah,
surprise?
you kind of answered that
Yeah,
already.
I kind of answered that one already.
The macaron
So you
making
got extra
course.
credit.
Yes.
What about you, Anne-Marie?
Do I ever surprise you with anything romantic?
In general, I think women take their men for granted.
I tend to bring him like, does it count to like just bring him random snacks if I'm out somewhere? Does that count as being romantic?
I
Or
guess
like,
that's the
Does.
most romantic you can be.
I
Wow.
made him breakfast yesterday without him knowing that that was happening. I just showed up at his door and gave it to him.
Oatmeal?
Beans on toast with orange juice.
Wow.
Very
And
British.
coffee.
A very British
Wow.
breakfast.
Gotta tell
Um,
you, my heart's beating over here.
oh, just
Candy bars
coffee.
and beans on toast. Man,
Beans on toast, man.
you
Mm.
really know how to treat a guy. All
He
right. What
likes beans
about
on toast.
I do.
can you imagine if you're and I made him breakfast in bed, and what do you picture? Breakfast in bed. A a tray with a single crusty slice of toast covered in beans. Okay.
I
Best date you've
guarantee you,
had.
British people would picture beans on toast as an ideal breakfast in bed.
Yeah, but they'd probably also have one of those little eggs in those little egg cups, you know, where it's like the
No, British
perfect,
people are really
and
fucking
you
lazy.
hit it with a spoon. Okay.
No.
Best date you've had while traveling.
I would say it was either the first accidental date that we had because it was just very memorable, or well, the first official date that we had was also very memorable. We went to
Yeah.
see the live version of Aladdin,
Mm.
and it was very romantic. We had, did we have mixed popcorn? I think we had sweet salt. I think we had sweet and salty popcorn.
Yeah.
God, with your sense of romance, I can't
I
believe you
know.
don't like write romance novels or
I
something with
know.
bean toast and
Um,
Disney
I
movies.
mean, I could tell you, like, we went to this really beautiful Italian restaurant that overlooked the water with a sunset in Mexico, but the food was garbage. So,
Yeah, but
like,
what I think the real answer is that you answered this question already is probably when you went to Bluff.
yeah, but that wasn't a date. It was just like,
Oh yeah, that's true. Well, you know, maybe we need to retcon that.
that
That it
was
was
just
a
like
date.
a couple days of time
Well, what
together.
about you, Michelle? Since you're the romantic in the relationship.
He, I am the romantic. I just don't see romance. No, we're both romantic. I
I
see
was gonna
romance as
say, I was gonna just give the same answer, to be honest. Like one of those first dates, those were probably the most romantic because it was so genuine and like because we just went from not dating to like a full-on relationship. There's not that really big period of going on dates.
Mhm.
Like our first date to the night market, and we had some food, we had some mango sticky rice, and like we spent the evening together. Like that wasn't really planned, but it was very romantic, just the whole thing in general. And then when we actually planned our first date, um, like going to the movies and like we had a coffee at Starbucks before they played
I'll
annoying
take a nap in
music.
your lap.
You had a nap in my lap, like those kind of things. Like that was probably the more romantic dates. I don't know if it's me, but like I don't classify us going on a date now, even if it's more romantic, whatever it is, as like dating. Like to me, going on a date with someone is between when you meet them and when a relationship becomes a thing. Like
And
after
we didn't
that,
have a dating period.
we didn't really have that big of a dating period, but those two examples just caused our relationship to happen, which is why I think they were so special.
But I think we would classify them as romantic because of the feelings that were around them, not necessarily because of the activities. So, like, we planned as friends to be at the night market together, and then on our walk to the night market, Michel informed me that he had feelings for me, and I emphasized, I agreed that I had similar feelings. And so then it was like this sudden, like, now you suddenly have this slight awkwardness because you're like, okay, well, what do we do with this information? And now you suddenly, like, your butterflies, are not just yours. Like there's that butterfly's aura in the air. And so you start just kind of looking at each other's actions a little bit differently. You know, and now we do have date nights, but we both are very good at stopping and recognizing the little romantic things that we each do for one another throughout the day. You know, again, like making a cup of coffee for one another, or letting the other person sleep in, or I feel like there were a couple things I said to you
Letting the
earlier.
other person sleep in is about to become a big
Very
one.
romantic.
I do
Once
love how
you,
this
yeah.
is the lightning round.
Yeah, this is
Um,
so continue. We have
well,
like
and
3
so we've
minutes,
been
so
running long
we
on
should
this
lightning it.
question because this is actually the first episode where we will be implementing the mercy rule. Michelle, you are so far ahead that we ending the round, and we're moving to the final question before Anne-Marie's final thought. And that question is, what's the biggest lesson you've learned about relationships while being a digital nomad, Anne-Marie?
That attachment only causes you to push people away, and recognizing that, and like learning to just love the person for who they are, who they bring to the table in this moment, in this day, with no expectations of what they will bring to you tomorrow, is really the best way to have a productive relationship.
I like that. You don't expect anything. You don't even expect them to be, you're surprised even to find them still waiting for you in the parking lot of the grocery store.
I am. I have no
You take
expectations.
nothing for granted.
Take nothing for granted.
And what about you, Michelle?
I mean, same thing, but I would add that just trusting and committing yourself to it is very important. Like, we had long distance quite early on, but because we committed to it, we made it work. And, you know, trusting that the other person is there when you come out of the airport to pick you up, or like, hey, my bus is going to come into this town, which is, you know, a little bit of a drive away, and like trusting that the person will be there because they are committed to you. I think that's a very important lesson.
And maybe that sounds silly, but like when it's 3 weeks into a relationship, especially when you meet a lot of people while traveling who do this whole like, oh yeah, when we're in the same country, let's get together. And then like, you know, you show up to a city and then they're like, oh yeah, by the way, I couldn't be there. And it's